Oh, shit.
Scooped. You got scooped. Scooped by Pip.
Do continue.
Hello and welcome to the Crate and Crowbar. This is episode number 512 on the 4th of January 1986. I am your host, Philippa Waugh, and joining me today is Chris Thurston.
I haven't been born yet.
That's upsetting. In that case, it'll just be me and the others then.
I am 1 year old. I'm Tom Senior. I'm
Tom
one.
Senior. And Alex Wiltshire.
Ciao, amicis.
How old are you at this point?
Well, it's 1986.
Yeah.
11.
Oh, brilliant. You're 11 plus.
Finally, we've got some
I can speak and everything.
mature opinions on this podcast. Finally.
Fuck off. Mario's well better. Mario's more crucial than Sonic. In fact, Sonic hadn't been invented, or Mario. Oh no, Mario had.
Tetris.
Hang on, Spectrums are better? No, Amigas are better?
These
Just
are dark
going
days.
through the list.
Your hot takes are coming thick and fast. And slightly, non-committally. Shall we figure some news from the future? This has gone weird. Sorry, I didn't know what day it was.
No, let's live with this. Let's live with this facade we've created.
It was all just
We've
to
made a
annoy
hole.
Chris, really.
It's where we live now.
Yeah.
Who now doesn't exist.
It's a
Sorry.
high concept episode, everybody. It's what's going to happen.
Oh god. In the future, I feel like I see numbers, much in the way of Nostradamus. Blops is not a number, but, 4 is. Blops 4.
Blops 4?
Yeah.
What
Shall
is a
we-
blop for?
Well, I don't know, because none of the preceding blops has
It exists yet. Second World War has happened, so
that's
notionally,
true. Yeah,
there
we
are
can
blops.
do this.
Oh,
We
hang
can-
on,
we
a
can
blops
piece
never.
this
Oh
together.
no, but the Vietnam War has happened, so
Okay.
that is a blops.
Well, yeah, and the other two blopses took place in people's heads, didn't they? So
And heads exist in 1986.
Exactly. Imaginations. We had more imaginations back then, so in a way.
We had to, because most of us were playing with wooden toys at that point.
Exactly, especially you. The wooden SNES is your favourite.
I think I was
of all
probably
consoles.
chewing my wrists, figuring out what teeth are.
He wasn't even given a rusk.
I was
to
an
make do.
idea.
Just a concept like blops. And 4.
So really, you're the person who's ideal to speak on.
Yeah. Tell us about blops 4.
Okay.
Unborn voice. That's how it's about Call of Duty.
This is how I
Black Ops 4.
sounded.
Okay.
Echoing forwards from the past into the future like a Metal Gear character. So they announced Call of Duty Black Ops 4, didn't they? That's our video game news, or one of
Well,
them.
they announced it via a hat a few months ago, didn't they? And
Yes.
then they announced it via actual announcements to this week.
They
last
announced
week.
the most. So I only really caught up on this today. I've been away a bit, which is one of the reasons we didn't have an episode last week. Sorry about that. But I did decide to just watch all of the trailers and things today, so that I'd know what I was talking about when it came to talking about the Blops 4.
It turned out accuracy was not really ever going to be this podcast strong point.
Indeed.
What a fool.
But actually, I came away from it fundamentally not understanding almost anything about what had happened.
But you know what a battle royale is.
I do know what a battle royale is, but I feel like I can so that trailer so there are 5 or 6 trailers.
So confusing.
And
They should have done 4.
They depict the game Call of Duty Black Ops 4, a shooter for computers and game consoles, where one runs in a circle and shoots the most recent person to spawn in the back, and then are shot in turn by the person who is behind them. And this happens forever, generating infinite money. That's the fundamental thing. There's a man with a beard. He looks like looks like he'd sell you an IPA on a stone-baked pizza.
A grizzled man.
Yeah, exactly. He has guns and gadgets. There are grenades that make lasers, and then the lasers touch a man and the man explodes. There's a big drill that sets people on fire, I think. Helicopters. It's sort of the Black Ops of the future, but no more jetpacks sort of thing.
They're still in the future.
Sort of.
They've mined all the war.
They've been turning this dial.
All the duty.
There's this dial for Call of
been
Duty.
called.
They have, yeah. But it goes from like in space, that's too much gadgets. No one liked that.
Too much
Turn it back
future.
down again.
Turn down the future.
Yeah,
Back to 2000 and...
the correct amount of future is basically the exact amount of future that is in Rainbow Six Siege, but with more like cut off tops and cool tats. So that's that trailer, and that's sort of interesting in that it shows the game.
How many boots on the ground are we thinking about for this one?
I think it's anywhere between, so presuming every player, this is an interesting question, Alex, because let's say it's like a 16 player COD mode like it would normally be. You'd think that's 32 boots. However, they are always running very fast. So how many boots are touching the ground at
They
any
might
given
not
time?
ever touch the ground.
Indeed. Well, I would say that in moving slightly further towards the present from the future than what they were doing in space, the boots are more readily on the ground than they were previously. Does that make sense?
You should
You mean
know
'cause
that Chris is
gravity?
pointing up at the sky and then pointing down at the ground to illustrate that for us.
Because they're not moon boots, basically.
No,
is what
they're
you're
not.
getting at.
They're not moon
Okay,
boots.
Cool.
Yes. I don't know. Are they?
That is one of my favourite phrases, though, boots on the ground, because it is one of the most meaningless phrases that
to
game
apply-
developers say.
Yeah, to apply to a series where you look down, you don't even have legs.
I've forgotten what it's meant to mean. Is it meant to mean that it's kind of practical war,
think it's
or
like
is it?
In the field, like, I think boots on the ground just means that you are in action, right?
So you're playing a game.
Isn't it?
So you're
Well, I mean,
doing the game.
isn't it military parlance anyway? So that's like where they've tried to
I think so.
Infantry combat, isn't it? It's
Yeah.
the fact that you're actually being,
Like you're
touching ground in enemy territory,
physically in
fighting
there.
But sometimes you're a helicopter.
And sometimes you're piloting drones. And
Sometimes,
Yeah, sometimes
boots in
you've
the
just
air.
called in an unarmed aerial vehicle for a strike
Yeah.
because you've got that combo in your running around thing.
So that trailer was like, I kind of understand that, right? Like that sort of establishes what the game is. It uses a lot of actual gameplay. It's very, polished and makes it look sort of dramatic, but there was actually a kind of, I can't understand this. This is Call of Duty and there's no single player this time or no campaign in the traditional sense. So fine. Then the other trailer, which is more like the hype trailer for the game, I guess, is one where like there's like I can't remember now if the trailer had a gravelly man talking over it, because there were the big words in the font. What the font expresses the voice of a gravelly man, so I can't tell if I read it or heard it, like some kind of like sense memory disaster. But anyway, that one is quite brave for Call of Duty because it seems to frame the theme of Black Ops 4 as a kind of anti-establishment, anti-big data, very sort of contemporary, sort of like act of rebellion, where the idea is that like, the world is always just treating you as a number. If you're in the army, if you're a number, but there's a flash montage of people clicking accept on various end user license agreements. And I'm not joking.
That's the best because you will definitely be clicking.
I know,
on
because this thing is going out through fucking BattleNet. Like, and so it's like, you're just a number in the machine until you choose not to be.
Don't
play.
click the really
Exactly. Yeah. This is a really high concept GDPR email from Activision to
Are you fighting for the GDPR?
No, because at the end, so I think they've done like a class system for the new one.
You are the GDPR.
Yeah, indeed.
God damn
Don't they fight
It
the
was
brother?
inside us all along.
police recon.
No, I think isn't that the people that fight the Brotherhood of Nod?
Yeah.
GD.
Global
Global
Defense
Initiative.
Global Defense
GDI.
Police
GDI.
Recon.
GDI.
It is GDI, yeah.
You knew that all
I did
along.
know that. I was doing a bit. But so in that one, because I think it's got a class system now and the classes are characters because Rainbow Six did that. It does this kind of like, but if you choose to become a team, you can start a war. As if that's like a good outcome for, it's like,
It's like, basically...
who are you fighting?
Yeah, it's kind of like, no, we need a
Numbers.
support because war. And you're just like, what? No, that's...
Yeah, we're not going to sign this end user license agreement. We are going to pick up a riot shield or a dog or a sniper rifle or some grenades. Those are the gadgets that I saw. And we're going to fight for something.
And then score lots of kills, which means that your opponents definitely do become numbers no matter what happens.
Yeah, but you're not a number. You're not a number, but you can prestige like 400 times or something.
My favourite thing is that, with that you do become a sort of a really fancy sofa, because the prestige armour just always looks like something that fell off, I don't know, Liberace's couch cushions, or like there was that amazing one, I think I put it in work chat, it's that purple like filigreed one from Advanced Warfare, which is like my favourite thing, because it's this rich purple that makes you look like, I don't know, like a heating grate in a cathedral crossed with like your nana's sofa, and it's just the best thing, and it's like, this is aspirational, I guess, maybe.
It's hard to get, therefore it's worthwhile.
Yeah, and you're just like,
So from there, everyone's watched these trailers, right? Like,
No.
okay, I want to take you on this.
I'm enjoying this through
Tom,
you.
They all sort of smeared into one
Okay.
nonsense.
But I want to take you then on the next part of this journey, because we've established this, at least. We have this sort of like army surplus hipster kind of thing. This sort of vaguely anti-establishment from within the establishment sort of thing. And I don't even want to talk about Battle Royale yet, because that exists over somewhere else. Because then we have a trailer that begins in a cavern of some kind, like a kind of mystical temple ruin. And there are 4 people sat there: an old man, a kind of explorer, a big burly kind of heavyweight brute, looks very 20s themed, and a lady with a bandana. And they inhale some vapors, at which point they're swept back in time, and the man wakes up in the body of a gladiator. And if this sounds like a dream, well, you fell asleep during the Call of Duty announcement. Anyway, these gladiators, that are sort of Celtic, but maybe they're in ancient Rome or Egypt, in a sort of generic kind of ancient place.
Ancient looking.
Yeah. Walk out into a Colosseum where a bad wizard puts a scarab beetle into a huge, like, Wheel of Fortune disc thing that explodes, and then zombies are there, and
I
they
thought
have
he
to,
might be a priest.
and they have to, I guess, a priest or it depends. I mean, a sorcerer perhaps.
What D&D class was he?
Yeah, probably a warlock.
Fair enough.
I guess a warlock. And then they fight zombies with swords, and you're like, okay, well, that's this in this, isn't it?
It's a step on from Nazis.
Yeah.
Most things are.
Yeah, and well, let's cut away from this straight away. Why not? We're on the Titanic now. And those same people are now narrating a kind of heist movie. And then they do a heist, but guess what's in the vault? It's the key to the scarab gong. And oh no, the old man's back, but he's
It's time split. You're describing Time Splitters 4 or
yes,
something,
I
aren't you?
am. And then they all fight zombies on the Titanic, and it ends with this shot of them back to back fighting zombies. Like, well, we're beating the zombies. What could possibly go wrong? When, shit you not, a big iceberg looms up behind them.
It's the ultimate zombie.
Yeah, exactly.
Shoot it at a weak point.
Exactly. And then it goes like, Call of Duty 4. And then the man with a beard from the other game that they made is back. Just like as a logo. It's so weird. And I kind of get that this is all going to make me sound super out of touch with what the kids are into. With the Fortnite and whatnot.
But Fortnite is positively simple and focused in comparison.
I feel like it's really...
Well, it's like they had the decency to spin their two things into two separate games. This is Zombies is clearly a separate game at this point. You know?
It's odd, isn't it?
It feels like Call of Duty is coming out not with like, and this is maybe the right approach, because Call of Duty reinvents itself all the time, while without reinventing itself, if that makes sense. It's like, it's in space now, but it's Call of Duty. It's in the future, but it's Call of Duty. It's in Vietnam, but it's Call of Duty. And like, that's fine. And it feels like this one is like, let's just do every individual other game people like at the same time. So we're going to do Rainbow Six Siege. This year, the thing to do is Siege plus Left 4 Dead, but even like a bit of Vermintide with the kind of like gladiators fighting zombies with swords
quite
and
swarmy.
Yeah, swords and shields and things like, plus whatever else, plus obviously PUBG and Fortnite, and that's Call of Duty this year. Like, it's sort of like this very moneyed selection box of
And references to big data.
Yeah. It felt like that to me came under the
zeitgeist. Catch it.
That to me came under the sort of the Rainbow Six side of it, just because like it had a little bit of that Ubisoft topicality where it's like they're trying to be anti-establishment, but from within that structure, and it always comes off slightly ringing a little bit false, despite the good intentions of the writer involved, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
It's always like, it's quite hard for that to be the message of Watch Dogs, for example, or The Division. You know?
It's just a little blops that wants to be loved. And it will do and show you anything. Just for the merest glimmer of attention. And that makes me want to
Go and do the truffle shuffle, Blops. Go and do the truffle fluffle. Fluffle fluffle.
What just happened to Alex?
Alex
It's a Goonies reference, is it not? Yeah.
Oh, okay. Good.
Oh, I see. Yeah, right. So I just heard
Are you telling me that you don't know what
No,
that
I do.
reference
I get
was?
it. Yeah,
I did
do
it in
get
a
it.
Southwest accent, which probably did throw you off a little bit.
Yeah, I did, yeah.
I thought you were being your younger self referencing the Goonies.
I'd have done it in a Suffolk accent.
Yeah. I just thought you were trying to see how these pop shields would handle the ultimate plosive.
Truffle isn't a plosive, is it?
Must be.
No, it is when Alex pronounces it like that.
Yeah, fair enough. But like, yeah, I get your point. It's just such a weird thing that something can have such a consistent sense of sort of, and I hate myself for saying this, but like 7 out of 10 Call of Duty-ness, when it's sort of, it backflips in so many different directions all the time. It's really interesting that it does still seem to have that core identity even amongst all of these, you know, different things. And I'm not saying that in a kind of derogatory way. Well, no, but like, you know, because I think it's perfectly
kind of
valid to
accepting what it
enjoy,
is, yeah.
to enjoy the game for what it is. But like, it's interesting to sort of see that kernel of it persist, even when it's like, we're doing these things now.
I think it's ultimately like they've realized you can put literally fucking anything around a game where you hold down a mouse button or the left trigger to snap to red dot sight on your MP5, and you press the other gun and it goes bah, 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 bah.
Yeah,
That's really
it's
nice.
A lovely little chugger. Yeah.
It's almost like no one's brave enough to even tweak that or mess with it at all. It's like that always has to be the very core of the game.
Yeah. You have to move really smoothly. It's 60 frames, and that's it.
That's right. And it's got to be basically, you sit on the couch after the pub and just shoot some dudes for 10 minutes, and who the fuck cares what it's all dressed up as long as you get to do.
But this is the first one. Like, this is the first kind of post-plunk bat, really.
Yeah.
Like, last year, they couldn't possibly have responded to Battle Royale in a meaningful way. And this one must be the product of a lot of, oh shit.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, and so that maybe brings us to the final trailer, which is just a sort of 2D wireframe of a mode they haven't really shown.
Quickly, make a big level and increase the player count.
Yeah. And they've got some nice ideas. Like, I like the idea that the big level is made up of, like, the towns and things in it are other COD maps. So it's going to be like, you'll go to Nuketown.
Oh, cool.
So like classic COD maps will populate the
That's
mega
nice.
map, which is a nice idea.
Yeah.
Genuinely a nice idea. And all of that like really tight gun stuff that COD's always done is a good fit for that sort of mode. And like, you know, I don't have a problem with it per se, but it's sort of weird that it's like, it's almost the least weird thing. It's like the most expected thing. Like, I've been making jokes about this being the thing they're doing for months. And actually, so as of the literally the minutes that we're recording this, Battlefield New One is going to be announced in exactly 18 minutes at the time that we're recording this. So by the time this goes out, we'll know if that has a Battle Royale mode. Spoilers, it almost certainly will.
For sure.
So,
But that one, and if sort of like COD for me completely gets away with being a really standard Battle Royale mode, whereas Battlefield has to be a lot, for me, I'd be surprised and I'd be disappointed if it wasn't a lot more ambitious, because Battlefield already had, you know, large scale encounters. Filled with loads and loads of rules going on, you know, like pushes of fronts and whatnot. If it doesn't incorporate something of that, it almost has more on top of it than Call of Duty.
yeah. Oh, then they've announced that the Call of Duty one, which is called Blackout, will have like vehicles and aircraft and stuff in it.
Yeah.
Aircraft being the relatively new thing for that genre. But yeah, I mean, I'd be amazed if Battlefield wasn't just a real big map.
Yeah.
Like a big Wake Island, if you will.
Yeah.
And yeah. I'm struggling a little bit to summon excitement because I just don't really imagine myself playing any.
Isn't it odd that this is the first year where like the shooter genre has been meaningfully mixed up with new ideas, and we're still kind of going.
Yeah,
mostly because the excitement's already passed about the new ideas, or it's like always ongoing in other places.
I think, that's interesting because it is exciting to see big shooter developers try and adapt to chase Blunkbag and specifically Fortnite. At the same time, I feel like if you play one of those games, there's got to be a really, really good reason why you'd pay to go
£60.
Yeah, I suppose it depends a lot. I mean, this is the most boring answer, but a lot for the fate of these games, a lot in terms of their mindshare, and particularly where the mindshare needs to be, a lot depends on what streamers and YouTubers do, either sponsored or not, because I suspect one of the rise of the sort of battle royale genre wasn't just an oh shit moment for Activision and EA because these games are super popular and they haven't capitalized on it yet. It's an oh shit moment because half of their YouTubers and streamers, people who would be like dedicated COD YouTubers, jumped ship.
And also, a lot of their hits being provided by the kids who are playing Fortnite. Yeah. And therefore, Call of Duty will still come with that 15 or is it 18 or 15? It will come with that age rating, which was busted through by a lot of kids, but then they don't have to.
Yeah, Fortnite is just there on your computer or PlayStation.
For free.
Yeah, whereas Call of Duty is a mom sort of decision.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's tricky and it's interesting. Nice to see it being shaking up. Like, it could be that this is finally the thing that it could be that one odd offering this game is just from its kind of initial pitch is the sign that it's sort of fragmenting a bit in the face of a changing audience, right? Like that audience doesn't just want, it's not enough to say, oh, it's Call of Duty again, but it's this war, right? It has to be sort of everything to all people now, which is...
Maybe they think that because Black Ops has always been the sort of the slightly weirder one, hasn't it? And the slightly more experimental one. So maybe it's the one where they feel safer in ditching the main campaign, right?
It's funny though, because I always thought Black Ops was quite the most story-driven. It's the ones that I remember the story most.
The numbers.
Yeah, maybe. But I wonder whether maybe, because conceptually it has done some weird things, right? So maybe it's the one where they think that maybe the people who are fans specifically of that bit of the franchise will not kick off in the same way. And so it's where they can experiment with some of these things and track what happens and see what people respond to and whether, I don't know, maybe they're just looking to see, okay, is it worth finally spinning zombies off to be the thing that Treyarch do? Or, I don't know, whatever. I mean, as a full, like that's the main meat of the game or something.
Yeah.
But also I was kind of interested because, putting it on Battle.net, because obviously Overwatch is phenomenally successful. So maybe it's like, okay, we're not doing as well in the sort of, stores or, people who have habitually bought Blops year after year, maybe are finally not doing that. So perhaps putting it on a storefront where people go every day to play Overwatch is, a sensible thing to do on that front. Like it's kind of an interesting business. Like
it could also, and it also gets them out of Steam's.
Yeah, 70%.
They're obviously happy with Activision. Are obviously happy with Destiny 2 being on Battle.net, and they must have pre-existing agreements and relationships that perhaps just like carry over to a COD game.
Yeah. Interesting. I imagine we'll find out more at Electric 3.
Yeah, I'm wondering whether they'll have a more...
It'll be... People will play it, I think.
Yeah.
They might be saving the full Battle Royale reveal for
That's what I mean.
Yeah.
Like a more fleshed out, like, Battle Royale trailer or something. At least.
What else has been happening, Christoph?
The other thing that was announced is Rage 2. Imagine.
Avalanche.
Being made by Avalanche, who made Mad Max.
And Just Cause. Justinian Cause.
And there's actually a rumour that they're working on Just Cause as well, so that's kind of interesting. But yeah, so, Bethesda doing a Bethesda thing, and summoned a sequel out of the ether of a game that I don't know if anyone was really waiting for a follow-up to.
No.
But it was all right, Rage. So, and I know Tom can speak to that.
Yes.
But, so Rage 2, it didn't give me so it really looks like Bethesda's Far Cry. That was my kind of take from the trailer. The reveal was like, okay, it's,
It went on a bit of
world.
a journey that week, though, because there was the sort of the teaser for the trailer, which looked, not to make any bones about it, lame as. It just looked like it was trying far too hard and would just be excruciating. And then the trailer hit, and it was like, oh, why didn't you say it was an okay, looking prospect, right?
Yeah, there's kind of quite embarrassing live action, just cutting between loads of kind of zany Wastelander archetypes that you've seen in Borderlands. Done better, actually.
Yeah. And with the rumour that there's going to be a new Borderlands announced at E3, it's a weird time for this entire genre.
I think, wasn't it like an Andrew WK song, playing in the background, and it was kind of and it just felt so kind of, it was doing all of the energy at you in your sort of chasm of silence.
It was very, hello fellow kids, as well.
Or pause for applause. None comes. You're like,
And that was sad. Everyone was sad. It's because everyone's wondering why we need a sequel to Rage anyway, really. Because it was 8 years ago it was released, roughly. And it was
8 years.
I think it was 2010.
I thought it was, I think it was later than that.
I don't know, actually,
while
because
I was living in London, I think, because I appreciate that doesn't narrow it down, but I remember, because we were talking about this, I saw all the advertising on the tube and then no one I knew played it.
I went to the reveal event at Id's office way back.
I might have reviewed it, which case it couldn't
be 10.
have
Wouldn't be
been 8. It might be 6. Tom is Googling it very quickly.
I'm just really curious because...
Speak slower, everyone. Let's not leave dead air.
But it's interesting regardless, though, because obviously all of the teasing that they did just felt so excruciating. Like I say, it had this this.
I mean, on their
pink...
side, it was never intended to. Well, I don't know.
But then all the tweets and things of pink stuff all over. I don't know, Big Ben or whatever. I can't remember, but there was it just felt
the pink
really
motif,
sort of. I guess anarchy by committee or something. And then the actual trailer itself ended up just looking, oh, that might be fun. Or,
Yeah. It was kinetic and stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like a game.
Yeah.
The first one came out in 2011.
2011.
Yeah.
October 2011. So the same time as Skyrim, which is tough.
Yeah.
A tough crowd to enter.
And it kind of sank without a trace, as Pip said. It came out, had loads of technical problems on PC at least. It was the big kind of tech showcase at id Tech, and it had all these terrible sort of texture popping problems where
on console it was rough as hell.
Right, it was bad as well. So you turn around and then it would take a few seconds for all the textures to actually load in. And once it did, it was really some nice art direction, beautiful skies, and a nice kind of Fallout style wasteland aesthetic. Which is
weird because it actually prefigured a lot of the.
It did.
Because a lot of the detail you get in game worlds today is what Rage was doing 7 years ago.
Yeah.
But because every little bit was completely kind of authored specifically for that area.
It was mega textures, and artists would have total. It wasn't just dragging and dropping objects. It was you texture everything according to the lighting of the scene and stuff like that. So it looks pretty amazing once the textures. Even today, once the textures actually loaded in and it's done its stuff. The towns are just really beautiful, and it suffers because loads of games since have happened to have done that same aesthetic, that exact same aesthetic over and over again. So it feels kind of stale, and that's the problem that Rage 2 is going to have as well.
Because now we're in kind of presumably, or is it definitely Avalanche's engine, which is a typical kind of open world kind of identical assets kind of placed down because you're streaming stuff.
But it is a first-person shooter, right?
It is a first-person shooter, yeah. And it's interesting. It looks like it's going to have a Crysis-style special powers in terms of a super jump, and you get double jump, which looks a lot like Doom, actually, the 2016 Doom reboot. And just crazy weapons that you can overcharge to do stuff like... it shows a machine gun shooting a bandit into the air and just kind of juggling them endlessly away from you in a very arcadey sort of way. So it's definitely not going for a kind of hyper-realistic...
Like the other thing it looks like, which is Bulletstorm.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, it's got that kind of sense of
It's
humor
like
as well.
there's a lineage of first person shooters that look a bit like 2000 AD comics, basically, and it's in that kind of spectra of like weird punks with bits that fall off when you shoot them.
But I really liked, I think the thing that caught my attention that I wasn't expecting them to have done well, even though it's obviously just a trailer, so I don't know. It's that sense of, you know, when kids are bored and they do really dumb things and end up hurting themselves because they've like just challenged each other to jump over a big rock and eventually one of them's fallen over.
Yeah.
Like
The premise of Jackass.
But yeah, and it kind of just had that, you know, that real sort of idiotic, like, what are you doing? But it's clearly passing the time and is just silly and, you know, like, I think there was a kind of, that was something that didn't come through until that trailer, I think. And that's something that appeals. So if they can keep that going in the actual game, I think I'd be more interested for sure.
I love the idea of a fun shooter that's actually linked together by driving sections that are fun, kind of combat Mad Max style things as well, which Just Cause developers Avalanche could definitely do well.
Did you play Mad Max much?
I did, yeah. And actually the vehicle combat is like the highlight of that. Second, perhaps, just to the beautiful deserts they can do. Like, it's a really good fit for the type of thing they're trying to do. The idea of actually driving between first-person shooter encounters in crazy kind of war cars that you get into fights with. Rather, in Far Cry, you just sort of drive along and some people arbitrarily shoot you. A tiger tries to attack your tires, and then you just kind of like drive on, and it's just pointless.
So you drive as far to 100 meters, you shoot someone that you want to loot, so you get out, then you get back in the car, drive another 100 meters.
Yeah, but if that was like a whole combat game into itself, that's actually a really cool idea. I'm kind of, I can see a good version of this game in my head, if you know what I mean. Like that trailer showed me enough to like a Borderlands style thing with really, really cool guns and superpowers and crazy vehicle combat. It could be rad. And actually Far Cry frankly needs some competition because it's really getting samey now. Far Cry, it's just been doing the same thing over and over and over again. And for if Bethesda can come in and challenge them with it, something new, that would be sweet. I'd be up for that.
Tom Francis will lose his shorts, lose his mind, lose
His sugar.
lose his
Shorts, then his mind.
I don't know.
Poor
like,
Tom Francis.
But in that order,
No,
so
in a
he's
good way.
fine as he loses his shorts.
The Rage 2 news hit him really hard.
I just mean that, like, he's so into some of the elements of Far Cry that if it encourages them to do more of whatever it is that he likes,
But
towers, I believe.
It doesn't look like it's particularly full of stealth.
But maybe they'll double down on that. Maybe that'll be their point of difference, and then that's where Tom will shine. I don't know.
Emerge.
To be fair, trailers very rarely emphasize stealth. Like, even the Far Cry trailers are like, oh shit, I'm riding a BMX up like an evil villain's face or something, right? I don't know. I don't know where the sentence was going.
That's exactly what happened.
My shorts have exploded.
Yeah, I don't know what the losing shorts thing was.
Was it blow socks off? But like,
No, I think
something to
it's
do with Bart
because...
Simpson.
Yeah, that'll be it.
eat my shorts?
Yeah, but it's
Lose
because
my
I'm trying
shorts.
to like, I'm
As he
trying
said.
to
Like, lose my
train
number.
myself out of using like words like crazy and things just casually, and that was one where I was like, oh, I've put myself into an idiomatic cul-de-sac, and I can't get out. I can't reverse. So
Pip, come out of the cul-de-sac.
So yeah, that's what happened there. Sorry, everybody.
But Tom, you've been playing Rage 1 inexplicably.
Yeah. Well, let's go back to Rage 1 to figure out why you'd want to resurrect it, really, or
I
do
think that
anything with
feels
it at all.
explicable.
Is it?
Well, he watched the trailers for Rage 2, went back to Rage 1. I mean, you know, that feels like a logical
I had a
turn
question.
of events.
The question was, why did they do this? And obviously it's just an IP they've got lying around and might as well, I suppose. But the original game is kind of interesting for being kind of good, but really fucking full of bullshit and just really hiding its qualities behind this. For some reason, it sort of wants to pretend to be an open world game, and its conception of an open world game is just corridors where nothing happens, where you drive a buggy and nothing happens, and then you reach the first person shooter level they wanted to make, and that's really fun and really good, and it's just like there's lots of fun things to kill. There's for some reason you're fighting British punks who are just like, oi, get out. I don't know why, because everyone else is like American. But the British punks have gone wrong and they've taken over like most of the wasteland, and they just have to be eradicated in the world of Rage. But you've got these bizarre open world sections punctuated by decent first person shooter levels that are pretty linear. But then you've got all this kind of survival bullshit on top of it. So every single time you shoot a British punk fan from the 1970s, you press E on their corpse to get scrap out of it, and if you get enough scrap, you can make you make special locks that get you into doors, or you can sell them to a trader to buy wing sticks. And wing sticks with a brilliant weapon, which is like a 3-bladed boomerang that decapitates someone and comes back to you. But sometimes they break and you have to pay $25 in the post-apocalypse to get one replaced. And it's full of great weapons and really cool gadgets. Like you eventually get spider robots, you get shotguns that fire rockets, and you get like a minigun that spins up and creates like a ball of energy and Hadoukens stuff in front of you. It's full of really cool gadgets, and the stuff is fun to kill. But there's all this just kind of sort of survivalist nonsense around it. It's like, why do you care about crafting in this game if you want to be just shooting stuff up?
It's quite early crafting times as well.
It was, yeah. And I just felt
I like this though, because I feel like if there's one thing that you expect punks to have, it's safety pins, right? Yeah. And so it feels like you could legit loot them for that.
Take off all their little sort of pointy bits off their
they're among
jackets.
the more in pure crafting terms, among the more lootable subcultures.
Lootable subcultures.
Because you'll get safety pins and things. It's not like you're going to get like just Claire's accessories, jewellery or something that you can't really repurpose for many things.
And they're very low quality, Claire's stuff.
Well, it depends what you bought, I suppose.
But if you ever wanted to craft a bag to carry more stuff, like of the mods and rockers, you'd strip the rockers of their leather jackets and therefore fashion it into...
That's true.
Yeah, cotton jackets aren't going to go far, but the leather one...
it will get... Yeah, so
Winkle pickers versus boots.
You'd want to loot the boots so that you can boots on the ground, I guess.
That's true. Yeah, it's a war out
You'd
there.
want the safety pins, but then, like if you want a summer wardrobe, you need to go to a different
epoch.
Yeah.
I actually really want to play this game. The post-apocalypse populated
Choose the
exclusively
subculture that you want to loot from.
British subcultures of the mid to late 20th century.
Flower children would probably be
thinking about
something.
flowery dress dresses.
And it's like, you can't go into the lightless undercave until you've looted 6 ravers for their body paint.
They're glow sticks. You need to go into the dark caves. You need glow sticks.
Sorry.
So we've invented a better game now. But it's not.
If you're listening, Avalanche, pick up the phone. We're here.
He's getting like lots of lace from like New Romantics.
Oh God, the Creighton Consultancy. That's what we are now.
Do you want to make a game that's just a streak of pure bullshit? Come to the Creighton Consultancy. We've got you covered. Nonsense ideas.
We'll just keep talking.
We'll take every idea you've got and make it stupider.
From bean to cup, it's fucking nonsense.
Oh, good.
But yeah, Rage is highly conventional in a way that subsequent games would invent. It's kind of strange how it tries a load of stuff that games that came after it would pick up and run with, and like the Fallout RPGs and things like that. And it came after Fallout 3, though, right? After Fallout 3,
by about 3 years. So,
but it actually kind of weirdly inherits like a load of stuff from like late 2000s shooters. Like we were talking in piece game of Slack earlier about like about resource systems in shooters, and Bioshock, like it gives you like loads of superpowers but very limited ability to use them. Like your Eve kind of VAT is very small, which is what powers your abilities. Crisis, which gave you like superpowers but then like a battery that ran out after half a second. So, no, sorry, you're not allowed to use those.
Future critics will kind of draw this attention to this as the sort of like the early iPhone era and its influence on fun design.
Yeah. And Rage is like this in that it just wants to limit your fun all the time for no reason. It wants to make you pay for every wing stick that you own, and it wants to only give you 3 of the cool bits of ammo that you want to put into your pistol to make that pistol fun. And it just seems like why not let the player have the good things that you've made?
You constantly having to go back to revisiting places to get stuff so you can.
It's more that it creates an anxiety about using them. And this is just a problem. Like I hoard ammo in games anyway. It's just a kind of thing. But this game actively encourages it by saying, "Oh, there's a whole economy here, and a whole kind of market system where you want to sell scrap and buy bullets and craft things." And it's a game that just completely doesn't need it, because it could just be a shooter that's fun. And that's what I loved about like Doom 2016 is that.
Yeah,
it's a shooter that's fun, and it gives you all enough ammo to use all the things you want to use.
And it's also an id game, right? Like, and Doom, what became Doom 2016 apparently went through multiple
Rage had a similar, so when I went to the studio in presumably 2010, 2009 maybe, we went round the room where they were making Doom, one of the previous incarnations, like, they'd switched off monitors and things so we couldn't really see what was happening. But like, it was all, you're aware that this company, we were also aware that Rage had been through quite a convoluted time as well. And like, you could see issues with it as well. That some of the ideas were a bit kind of high-minded, and you could see textures popping and that kind of thing.
You maybe wouldn't have got Doom that we got in the end without something like Rage coming out and maybe excising its need to try and make this kind of RPG vehicle combat.
I think it was quite chastening.
Yeah. It feels like people didn't realize, like, the way you chase Half-Life 2, for example, at the peak of single-player shooter design wasn't more crafting, more persistent world elements, like that kind of thing. It was actually just make a better shooter, basically, at a fundamental level.
Yeah.
Which Rage almost is. It's just buried in all these other systems.
Yeah, and it's frustrating because, like, those survivalist sort of systems work incredibly well in shooters like Stalker, where scarcity is used to great emotional effect and really is part of the atmosphere, is part of the game's whole deal. And to see that just sort of like casually thrown into, obviously put a lot of work to put into Rage, but it's just to see it sort of slapped onto Rage as though that would work. It just doesn't. I don't know.
It sort of promises this kind of. It's the A in Rage is literally a anarchy symbol, right? Like, it promises this kind of like free form release from other pressures, and then is like, well, you can only afford 2 boomerangs. Sorry,
yeah, sorry,
which is actually quite punk.
Make it last.
So yeah,
so yeah, it's not very good, but hopefully the sequel will be better.
This seems like a totally different game to me.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, it feels like, but it's kept some of the aesthetic though. Like, it's weird how bizarre the enemies are in the original Rage. Like, the stuff they yell at you is just totally weird, and it's like when you die, they say, "Oh, see you later, bub," and stuff like that. It's just like there is like
it's just like all the punks
I talk to this corpse. That's just how crazy they are. So it's got that sort of note of it, like kind of thing that Borderlands would go on to like bring out and make into its main theme whenever Borderlands 1 came out or 2 came out.
I think Borderlands 1 predates Rage.
Oh wow! So Rage really was just riding some coattails.
Yeah, it's like Fallout and Borderlands.
Fallout and Borderlands.
Borderlands. Yeah. And then there's obviously a rumour that that's coming back soon. So, we're back, everybody. It's
Circles go round.
It's the late noughties again.
Yeah.
The Mad Max post-apocalypse is like the least interesting futuristic fantasy to me. No, I've done it so many times in games. I know it's nice to render a desert, but I want a big cyberpunk city. Just give it to me.
Yeah,
give it to me. Right.
I'd take more water worlds at this point.
Yeah.
Oh god.
Oh, good, Pip.
What?
You've been playing a game from the distant past.
Oh, well, I have, yes.
Take us back 10 or 11
years.
years.
The future. It's the future.
1986.
Take us back to...
forward.
Take us forward 21 years.
To Bioshock.
August 2007. Bioshock.
Is that when it was?
It's 2007, 2006, I think.
Okay.
7.
7. It was 7.
Definitely 7.
It was definitely 7.
Cool.
I remember where I was. I remember the electronics
Not when
boutique.
you were, though.
No, okay, I'll be quiet. I don't exist.
What? Yeah, it's brilliant. I mean, as in brilliant that I now know what I'm talking about. But Bioshock is alright.
So Pip's been playing Bioshock for the first time, and you've managed to get through this decade without having it spoiled, so we all have to
I didn't know this earlier in Slack. But I don't think I said it too specific.
I mean, it's fine. I wasn't listening.
That's perfectly good.
No, it's because I don't remember things, so I've probably had bits of it spoiled, but it's fine because I don't know what they were. Because again, didn't keep hold of that crucial information. Kept hold of all of the Sugar Babes lineups over time and schooled our American contingent on that, and then pointed out which ones also used to be in Atomic Kitten. Anyway, but not Bioshock plot. So yeah,
how are you finding
playing
it?
That. It's interesting to play it after having played Infinite.
You played Infinite.
I played Infinite when that came out, and so I sort of, I had thoughts about Infinite, but like I was missing the piece that saw how much of it was an echo of that first game. And so it's kind of interesting to see, I guess, the pieces that they kept hold of that I wonder whether it's because they sort of thought that they were intrinsic to the Bioshock experience and that they just really didn't work by the time Infinite came around, right? Like, scuffling around in bins to find, perfectly good packets of crisps. Or like syringes of goodness knows what. Like you just put your hand in a bin and it's a total lottery. It's like one of those lucky dips at a village fete. And I mean, but not a good one. Like, crisps or syringes. It's a bit terrifying. But yeah, and it's just such a kind of an odd experience and quite confusing. I'm assuming that the hint system got added in the remastered.
I think there was an arrow. There was an arrow telling you that.
But in the version that I'm playing, which is the remastered one, you can, if you get hopelessly confused, you can actually just press H and it's like you're supposed to be doing this right now.
Okay, yeah.
So things like, I think I would have found Fort Frolic absolutely insufferable.
I do. I remember the level design was the thing. Yeah,
because like. It felt like it was doing that thing where you go to maybe all of the different arms of a hub.
Yeah.
And, fulfill the tasks therein. Why am I being spoiler conscious? It's a game that's 1 billion years old and I seem to be the only person that hasn't played it. But anyway, so it feels like it's a hub that you sort of follow the different arms of to get each of the different segments. But like, I was wandering around for ages before I brought up a hint, and it was like, oh, you basically need to go back to the exact same place that you were, but there's another bit of it that you can access. And it was like, really? Like, that's not intuitive. And so it felt like...
It feels like a sort of a linear corridor shooter, but
then you suddenly get to all of these rambling sort of areas that... obviously, like, I can see where they were going with it, but it feels like... either the conventions hadn't quite solidified in the way that you would then go on to follow, if you see what I mean. But I don't think that can be true, because that's a feeling of level design, that hub with arms thing is a feeling that, I remember it from things like Ocarina of Time or whatever. Like, it's not... It's
somewhere between traditional System Shock and Zelda Dungeon was exactly the analogy I was going to use.
But anyway, so there's things like that which are kind of interesting. And then there's also the other thing that Tom and I were talking about, which was about how stingy it is with some of the resources. It feels really off in some places. So... I've generally, like, I always run out of Eve, which means that you can't use the plasmids, like, nearly as much as you would like to. Experimenting with them is slightly too expensive than,
sure.
Than you can really be bothered with. And, like, it has this system where you take photos of things to, like, learn about the enemy types, and then it gives you information about what is good against them in terms of, what you have at your disposal in terms of ammo and different types of stuff. But then you never really have enough of that to use against them. So it's always just, I know that, armor-piercing rounds are really useful here. Don't have any of them, can't afford any, can't find any. So it will just be, you'll have these 3 pistol bullets that I've found, and then you'll have one blast of this static shock thing, and then I'm just going to hit you with a wrench for a while. So
Yeah.
It's interesting because, like, I find that whole, like, legacy of design really, really interesting, because big part of Bioshock's structure from a resource point of view is pure RPG. It's pure dungeon design, basically. And, like, and I'd say specifically comes from a legacy of, like, Ultima Underworld, more broadly, like the kind of fighting fantasy idea that you probably play through this dungeon a couple of times until you find the way of doing it right. So, that's completely at odds with Bioshock's sort of like narrative urge that it's an experience that you have once and you're told the story as you do it. But there's definitely a sense that it's from that legacy, because it's from the Thief, System Shock, Ultima Underworld kind of Looking Glass kind of, lineage that stretches all the way back to Dungeons and Dragons at some point. And a bunch of different games have kind of come at from different angles, and you've seen subsequently it's really hard to go back to Bioshock after you play something like Dishonored, which has a much more interesting way of handling mana, for example, where you have the kind of, it punishes you for spamming powers, but not for using them once and then letting it regenerate. That kind of thing is very clever. There's been lots of little incremental bits of like clever design around resource management and maintenance that these games.
I think the subsequent games is like, I think Tom pointed out earlier on about the Crisis kind of, like not letting you use your suit. I think Bioshock came out of that same mindset of like, can't give them too much. Can't give them.
I think Bioshock also sort of wanted to be a horror game as well.
Yeah.
And I think
really
to create that, you've got to feel like they're trying to create that scarcity and that sense of desperation, not quite having enough stuff, but it just
and
ends
having
up being
to
quite
improvise.
irritating.
Yeah.
I think they're really nervous of just having the two hit, like, because I think that ideally all you do go around with is the shock power in your left hand, and then like
your
a
wrench
sort of a
wrench or shotgun,
Well,
and you
the
just
thing.
do that over and over if it wasn't.
It starts off with this, essentially it feels like it's making a promise or a statement of intent where it explicitly tells you use a combination of things. It says use the shock power and then use the wrench, and that's a combo, and it's your staple, which fine. But like, I was expecting it to then expect me to combo other things in a similar way, and it seems to sort of have some of those leanings, but then it never gives you the resources that would actually make that a reality. It's always just far too time consuming and far too irritating to actually set up any interesting chain of events or different cascade of power into weapon, into thing. And also just the way that you switch between things is just a bit clunky, and all of that kind of stuff. And I think one of the things that I felt was that they seemed to still, even I think I must be about 3/4 of the way through, they still don't feel like they've answered that question of like how to satisfactorily put tension in the game, because it feels like they've sort of tried to do it with scarcity of resources, or with like some really punishing enemies that you sort of have to learn a bit better or whatever. But and I don't know whether this is because I'm playing the newer version of it and whether it was true in the original, but I'm playing on the normal difficulty or whatever, and if I get a Big Daddy down to like half health or something and it kills me, I would rather that it kill me without me using any like health packs or anything to continue being alive in that instance, because all it does is it sends me back to one of those Vita chambers or whatever. I come out and it's on the health that I left it with. So there is no sense in me using up my Eve, using up my health. It makes more sense for me to die repeatedly in terms of the resources that it is so stingy with.
Yeah.
That, and things like that are a genuine sort of experience breaker, I guess. Like, I just sort of got so in that mode that I found that I wasn't really listening to the audio and stuff. It was more like when you've got a podcast on in the background and you realise you haven't heard a word that they've said for ages, and you're kind of, oh, what's he banging on about now? And sort of zoning back in and out. And I think at one point I just thought, oh, sod it. And I just put on my 2 2009 pop hits playlist. It's just like...
Just as Ken Levine intended.
But like, also, we were having this conversation earlier, so sorry for repeating myself, Tom, but like, it's the little fussy designer touches which just really made me laugh. So there's this one bit where I've found, this will be spoilers, sorry, but I've been rescuing the little sisters as they go along, and I've just, I've had an encounter with them where I've found their little hidey hole where they've all been collecting, I guess. And then one of them leads you through to the next bit, like after that, once they've rescued you from something. And there's this door that you encounter, and you both go up to it, and the main bit doesn't open, but like a small, like, tiny girl-sized door opens just enough that she can just crawl through it. And then she's standing on the other side and the whole thing opens. And it's like there's a cat flap. And that's not how people use cat flaps. If you and the cat want to go out, you just open the big door. You don't wait. You don't go, well, after you. And then just sort of, while the cat is sitting on your front step, go, right, and now I may leave.
But surely if you're waiting for the cat to open the door for you, as you would in any first person.
The girl doesn't open the door. Right. She just goes through. It's ridiculous.
It's like a Charlie Chaplin bit or something.
It's so weird. And also, why not make the door slightly taller so the girl doesn't have to crawl through it? Why not? What? This is the thing you have power over in the girl-centric dormitory. Why would you not
save the animation budget?
Oh. So it's things like that are just gradually like, and the weird like environmental storytelling kind of moments.
Oh, but it was so ahead of its time.
It was,
it
was so when
good.
It was, when
it was mind blowing when it came out.
Yeah.
What do you think of Rapture itself? Because I think that's what's really stayed with me about Bioshock, is the kind of dripping claustrophobia of that place and how different it felt.
I think I would not have got nearly as far without the setting. Mm-hmm. Like, I would have just got bored. Because it is just a rambly man talking about rambly things who might also be another rambly man.
And rambling.
Yeah. A rambly man chooses, a rambly slave obeys.
This is the thing, and it's like, but the rambly man chose to be really dull. So it's like, okay,
no
fine.
gods, no kings, only rambly man.
I know. Anyway, but it's gorgeous. And like, it's quite sparse because obviously you see that sort of, and a lot of games do it. It's because it's so time consuming to make all of those individual assets, right? For a whole world, it would just be beyond what you could actually reasonably do. But like, and so I'm really, especially the water that you can see from inside. Every time you can see that, I'm automatically just overjoyed, I guess, because it's so different and it's so weird, and it's and you just see a starfish on the window just having a nice time, and you're like, oh, great. Good for you. Or like a shark will swim overhead while you're going through a tunnel, and it's never not distractingly lovely, I think. And there's so much attention to detail, and I do really like that. And then, but it's also weird to see that, the elements of just odd collectibles and things, or, weird things that cropped up in Infinite, they make sense to me a lot more now in the context of, oh, I see, you were aping what your previous game did, and I don't know really what the balance is there between like, trying to make a point with it versus sort of getting a bit caught up in your own mythology.
I feel like Bioshock sort of didn't set out to be what it became 100% in terms of like, it's like, and I can't talk about some of this without spoilers, so I won't. But like, without, Bioshock was remarkable in a lot of ways, from environmental storytelling to design to shooting design.
I'm in a hollow place, if that helps.
I can't. Yeah, I'll ask you after what side of it.
Is that like an apartment area?
It's after.
I'm not going to remember this.
Have you been to Hephaestus?
Yeah, it's after that.
Okay, so you have actually, I think, probably seen the big twist in Bioshock.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, so you have done the big twist in Bioshock. Okay,
Yeah,
well...
like everyone's the same person, and then there's that other guy, Francis Fontaine.
Everyone's the same person.
So,
Look, I wasn't really listening during.
You were listening to Pop Hits. Bioshock's big moment. Ken Levine
hang on.
is rotating.
Hang on.
No,
Hang on, back up a
he
second.
trapped me in a really boring room with nothing to do, so I just sort of was wandering around in circles, That was what I was doing, and he was still talking, so I was just like, okay, brilliant, sure, fine. And then someone
Amazing.
like,
Oh my god, you managed to miss the twist.
is everyone the same person?
No. Although one person
is the same person.
Yeah.
So
As in
Atlas and like Bill or whoever his name was, right?
Bill.
That favourite.
Andy.
old Bill.
Andrew Ryan.
Andrew Ryan.
And Atlas, they're the same people. No. Okay, fine.
Oh my god. What were you listening to during that scene?
Girls Aloud?
No, what was it?
Podcast.
No, I don't think it was Cher.
Definitely wasn't Cher.
I don't think it was Cher. Who would it have been? It might have been Little Boots.
Okay.
Sorry
Okay.
if I fucked it.
No, this is incredible. So,
I know there was a mini golf.
the deadliest mini
There
golf?
was the
Right.
mini golf as
Okay,
well.
I watched
Famous
it.
mini golf scene.
A lot of important facts.
Look, I watched a man play mini golf through a 1, 2, 3-way mirror or whatever it was.
1, 2,
glass.
3 mirror.
I don't know.
123 way mirror.
Look, I watched the man play golf, and he finally got a golf ball in the hole, so that was nice for him. But like, I might.
Pip. Does this phrase mean anything to you? Yeah. Would you kindly?
That's why I think everyone might have been the same person, because
Oh, no.
he says, would you kindly? And then it like does a lot of flashbacks of like everybody saying, will you kindly? And I'm like, oh, brilliant, fine. They've all got the same like linguistic tick. They're probably the same.
Hey, excellent. This is so good. So
This is incredible.
This is amazing. Oh my god.
It's really hard.
To pay attention.
During Cher.
Right, it
All
was
Little
really
Boots.
boring. It really lost me. I'm sorry. Like, I hit him.
I think this is like, yeah.
So the guy, who was the guy you
him
hit?
with a golf club.
Who was-
Businessman.
The businessman. Who's the businessman?
Andrew Ryan.
Yes.
It was in his office.
It was.
Okay.
Yeah. Who are you? In Bioshock.
A lighthouse.
An ambulatory lighthouse.
There's always a man, and there's always a fucking lighthouse that won't stop chasing him.
Am I Andrew Ryan as well? Oh, really? Oh, I didn't know that. Oh, okay.
So,
Am I not also... Okay. Hang on. I thought maybe I was brainwashed. I was brainwashed. That's why my plasmids have gone weird now, and I'm not allowed to just use them properly.
yeah.
That's...
So how are you brainwashed?
I don't know. Someone... He says yellow, and then I go weird.
So, you're right.
I feel like I shouldn't have told
There
you
is-
I played this.
Pip, would you kindly pass me the bit opener?
I feel like I've been messed up.
No, Alex is the one.
So,
Do you want this one?
spoilers for 2007's Bioshock, everybody.
And also for me, who apparently hasn't played it.
So, you know how people are always saying, would you kindly?
No.
Now you'll see it.
Oh, what? Oh, no, I thought you meant in
Twitter
general.
Twitter is more or less 70% formed of would you kindly jokes now.
Yeah.
Okay.
Or has been,
Well, alright then. Fine.
So,
historically.
Oh, I didn't get
So you-
that then. No.
you were right on the right thread with there's a control phrase for you.
Oh, I see. It's not yellow then.
No.
It's would you kindly. But why does...
Yellow?
Like,
I don't remember yellow.
Hello, I'm Andrew Ryan.
It was like 1930s for YOLO.
Exactly.
he says...
You even live longer on weed.
He says something about something being yellow, and then your maximum health goes down.
We listened
Might
to
be true.
Coldplay at the time.
Yeah. It's gone onto the dark mix.
And then you have to loot Chris Martin, but it's just a single sad shirt.
I'm imagining, are you replaying our conversation in work today and trying to figure out, like, what your clues should have been that I hadn't understood?
No, what I'd realised is that it would have been completely impossible to spoil Bioshock for you. If I could have said anything and it would not have spoiled Bioshock for you.
Let's explain the rest.
Okay.
I think we should.
So, did you find the bit where there's like, you see like the kind of electric ghost of a showgirl that Andrew Ryan had a kid with?
Jasmine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, Andrew Ryan has a son who's also a clone of Andrew Ryan, I think.
Oh,
And-
like Cristiano Ronaldo.
Yeah.
He has a child called Cristiano Ronaldo.
Okay. Except in this case,
He
your name
was
is
brought
not.
up into the bottom of the sea as a plasmid or
Yeah.
slug.
However, your name isn't Cristiano Ronaldo, it's Jack Ryan.
Oh, yeah, no, that's my name,
Ultimate-
Jack.
2000s
Yes, exactly.
I got a
shooter
present on a
protagonist.
plane.
Yeah,
gotta call
except the
Jack,
plane
yeah.
was fake.
That's not true.
That is true.
But I saw the wreckage of it.
Yeah, you think you did.
But I
So
did.
what happened is at the beginning,
The
because,
lighthouse. Am I the lighthouse?
no, so you know Fontaine?
No.
So-
Is he real? Is he
Yes.
Andrew Ryan?
No.
Okay.
He's Atlas. Atlas and Fontaine are the same person.
Oh, that I did not get that.
That is definitely, and
I thought he is.
Fontaine, so he steals Andrew Ryan's clone baby, right? Because Andrew Ryan is the only person you can use the Vita Chambers, and therefore the only person who could kill Andrew Ryan is another Andrew Ryan. Because,
I didn't get any of
yeah,
that.
this is all in that scene.
I
And
thought
then-
everyone was the same person. Like yeah.
Where'd you go? But having learned that, where did you go? All right, we're in this undersea city and everyone's the same person.
I thought
Keep
it was just
shooting.
nonsense. I mean,
What was the fuss about?
and then it was just like, well, no, right. And then an alarm went off. So I had other problems. So I didn't really process any of this. I was just like, I'm sure it'll make sense at some point. Someone will there'll be another audio diary because, it's probably fine.
It's not finished the game yet.
So when you
No,
drop out
exactly.
of that, when you
I
drop out of
That's
that
true,
pipe,
actually.
when you drop out of that pipe in the ceiling, and there are all those photos of you, I think, and someone has
I
written
don't
"would."
think I've been there. Have
That
I?
this is prior to that.
Oh,
bit
that's
with Andrew. And the word "would you kindly" is scrawled over them in blood.
Oh, yeah, no, that's been on.
narrative.
There's been a few of them. Although, it's also a game
Environmental.
where they just wrote whore on the wall. So
yeah.
I was a bit like...
Well, they didn't have Twitter back then. So.
Well, I mean, because this was the part where I had a conversation with Andy Kelly about how it would be great if there was a mod that could just input shares tweets on the walls instead.
You need
which
blood emoji.
maybe means that I wasn't getting 100% of the meaning behind some of them.
This is wonderful. This is
amazing.
absolutely wonderful.
So, because what I was going to say is that Bioshock had a sort of unplanned life as a sort of, as like the game that launched 1,000 blogs, basically, right?
Yeah.
Like, in fact, in my old video game ramblings in this category as well, it's sort of like that thing of like, wow, games can be about games. The whole "would you kindly" twist, the whole point of it is like, joke's on you, player. You were a player of a video game this entire time doing what the objective man told you, which seems super pat now.
It is.
But at the time, we sort of like, games hadn't really done that.
Yeah, because it's like telling you it sort of so
Okay.
you kind of think,
Making,
she's going to be disappointed. That's all it is.
yeah. That's why Bioshock, one of the reasons it was because it's been so important. One of the reasons I
They
think
did it again in Infinite.
Yeah.
They
But
did.
they did it, but they did it knowing there was definitely
There's a knowing, like,
knowing
that's, and you played all the way to the end of Infinite, right?
I think so, yeah.
So the bit with the
I mean-
Infinite Lighthouse is where you go back to Rapture. That didn't,
Do you?
yeah.
Yeah.
Like, I thought you go back to... There's a crib and you give a baby whiskey? Is that a thing that happened?
That's
Yes,
the yellow.
it's an episode of MTV's Cribs. Yeah, no, you're right. You give, I don't think you give a baby whiskey.
I feel like there was whiskey in the ambient.
That was the revelation that you're the whiskey baby giver.
It's just drunk babies. Everyone's a drunk baby.
And I got baptised.
Yeah.
I feel like that happened.
To death.
Yeah, quite a lot. You got
okay.
Yeah.
Too much.
And what if baptizing?
Too much.
Oh yeah, no, because it was that other guy, wasn't it? The Charlemagne or whatever his name was.
Comstock.
Yeah.
Yeah. Why do I remember this?
I
You're
don't
good at
know.
remembering names.
It's law. It just sits in my
Oh,
brain.
Law
because he
master.
made me go round a thing, like a amusement park.
He
with,
did,
like,
yeah.
wooden trees.
So the Bioshock series, such as it is a series, is about men. It's about bad men and their funfairs.
Yeah.
Yes, that's exactly it.
Yeah. And Bioshock 2.
Bad men who are also
is the
you
best
and their
Bioshock.
funfairs.
Oh,
And Bioshock 2 is
well,
the best
that's,
Bioshock.
Yeah,
That's
I
coming
agree
up
with that.
next. But like, okay, so
Are you, you've got the intention to play the
Play
next one?
Bioshock 2. 'cause
you look so worried. Like, what are you gonna do?
I was hoping that you'd never have to test my statement.
Well, no.
As right as I am,
So-
you're just going to think, oh,
No, I'm not gonna know what's going on. It's fine. But like, okay, so why did anyone do any of these things in Bioshock? Like, why am I? If I didn't crash my plane,
Yeah.
then why am I there?
So you're there to kill Andrew Ryan.
Who wants
For
to kill
Fontaine.
Andrew Ryan?
Fontaine.
naughty Fontaine,
But what does he do?
so he can have Fat Rapture and all the
But
things.
isn't Rapture
money.
dead and empty and full of evil?
But it's full of excellent slugs that give you magic
Sluggles.
powers. And that is the real capitalism.
Yeah.
Okay.
Is your mind blown? It's pretty much. Look at it. It's really blown.
You're going to love the ending.
Okay.
Just play on.
Play on.
I liked mine better.
Yours has more magic to it, I got to say. Mystery.
Everyone's the same, and the code word is
Yellow.
So when you say yellow, does that mean everybody is the same?
And they were all
same.
yellow.
So why
Does it mean that you feed the babies whiskey?
did I kill the golf man?
The golf man was
It's
Andrew Ryan.
Andrew Ryan.
But why did I kill him?
Because
Because
of
you were
Fontaine.
told to. Because he says, would you kindly kill him? And you can't stop yourself doing it because
Fontaine's controlling your Brian.
you're Andrew Bryan.
Then why does he...
You Bryaned him with a golf club.
Yeah, why does he give me his stick?
His golf stick.
Yeah.
Because he
It's a fair call.
oh god. So I'm just gonna, oh man, this is 2008 era games are super meaningful time. So
I'm so glad we came to the future.
yeah, indeed. Hearing from me, not even a fetus yet, on why. So Andrew Ryan sees the compromised dream, the impurity of failed objectivism, and decides he would rather be beaten to death with a golf club by his own clone son than live in the ruins of
see
the
how
undersea
deep it
fun
is
fair
now?
he's made.
Do you see now?
That is the plot. That is the plot of Bioshock.
That's
Because-
as good as games get.
It is like we dug into the past and we snatched basically a single moment from basically any Alan Moore comic and we drag it into the noughties and we say, here's a golf club, beat your dad to death.
I just
That's
thought
art.
he'd gone weird.
Well, I mean that's probably true too.
Like, I thought he was the one that was telling me to kill him.
He
so
was.
I did.
Well, so it's more like, so the whole,
I thought maybe
A slave
he felt
chooses-
like he'd peaked.
doesn't get better than this.
Yeah.
Well, I mean,
Pretty much.
Yeah.
Well, I think the idea is that he sort of proves you to be unworthy by dying.
What?
Because you were a slave, you don't choose, you don't have choice, you don't have free will, man.
Which is kind of
Right.
against objectivism.
Yeah, you're not like an Ayn
Well,
Rand
yeah.
superhero. Who just
Yeah, and Andrew
You're
Ryan.
wrong.
Ayn Rand.
Yeah, what?
Yeah, okay.
Two Ayn Rands don't make it. Oh god, this is so good.
This is good. This is gold.
It's beautiful.
Why didn't we revisit Bioshock earlier? I love
There should have been you
I was
should have
talking
made
to-
you should have made a series of Let's Play of this. I don't know how you emulate the whole listening to pop hits while the most important moment in games played out.
Because I missed it. I just assumed. I'm sure they'll catch me up later. I just thought it would start making sense again eventually.
That's why you don't put little boots on the ground.
Little boots on the ground.
Oh man, that is so good. Because I was joking around it because I just assumed you hadn't gotten to the twist in Bioshock yet.
Turned out.
And then some.
Wow. Oh well. Oh.
Alex. Hi.
You've been playing a game.
I was going to say.
Are you sure though?
I don't know. I don't know. Well, I was going to say, I've been playing, Thief as a connected thing.
Oh,
but I'm not really ready to know the first. Thief 1.
Game.
Because I was inspired by, I noticed that, Robert Yang has been doing a Let's Play series of it at the moment where he talks about the level design and things. And I've been trying to play Thief for several years, and I play 2 levels and then get distracted by some not as good kind of flashier game that kind of pops up. And I've kind of gone back to it again and been playing, but I'm not quite ready to talk about it because I'm only, 6 missions in.
Are you going to check that you've understood the main plot points before you mention it on a podcast?
I tell you what though, I think that it probably holds up. Like, if you talk about time versus kind of holding upness on kind of like a general, it really still holds up. Like,
when was it? Was it 2009?
I think it's 99 or 98 or 98.
Yeah.
And it's like, still good. Still feels really ambitious as well, because it's these great big sprawling missions. But I don't want to really talk about too much because I want to talk about it when I've played a bit more. What I want to talk about tonight is a really weird game called The Quiet Sleep, which is by a developer called Nickel Murphy. And it is really very odd and incredibly ugly looking. But I'm going to list a load of games that it definitely plays on, and it is also nothing like them. It is very much, it plays like The Settlers. It plays like The Sims. It plays a bit like Fallen London. It plays a bit like what's the other? I'm probably coming. It's a really odd game where you play your own emotions. You play your brain. You play in your brain. And it consists of 3 stories. And it's basically a storytelling game, but you're fundamentally playing kind of thought processes, and this kind of story emerges from these thought processes. In the first story, you are a person and you have moved from your home to a city. And the first things you do is to kind of, you have to get a job and you have to find your way around the city. You have to kind of discover the place around there. In order to do all these things, you establish a kind of a resource point. So you stick on, there's like this hex grid and you put down the hex and then you invest will points into that hex and then it grows up and then you invest energy into this. So that's kind of like the settlers thing. You're kind of diverting kind of resources to a building fundamentally. But that building is like, things like, your curiosity. I can't remember all the terms, but like your curiosity, which then generates, once it's built, a resource that you can use to find out about the city. You build a work ethic, with your will points and your energy points. And that allows you to get a job, and a job then allows you to earn money. And then you get a house, and suddenly, periodically, the house asks you to put money into it. So you got to periodically go back to earn more money into all these little housey hexes on this board. It's really ugly. But the moment it kind of sort of popped for me as this sort of time where suddenly, occasionally at points, these negative emotions, these emotion points suddenly pop up as a result of what you're doing. And I'd got a job and I experienced casual racism. Like this emotion suddenly popped up and it was related to something I'd experienced at work. And, this thing then started feeding back resources back through, which were making a beeline for kind of like a cortex, which is in the top left corner. And if these negative things frustration, fear, anger, got to the cerebral cortex, like lots of parts of your brain shut down for a little while, and you have to play this sort of like minor mini game to get control back. And it's kind of like, that's the point where you've realized you have to build up these kind of things that relate, like stop bad, negative emotions from affecting you. So there's one, drawing, painting is one of them. So you can sort of put resource points, energy points into painting, and then they'll absorb negative emotions. There are others as well. There's one, for going for a nice walk, where you put energy into going for a nice walk, and that deals with certain things.
Can you build wanking?
I wish you could.
Oh my God.
But you could, the framework could definitely do it.
That's exactly what I was thinking.
Oh, for goodness sake.
But then, as you play through, more and more kind of like you eventually unlock, you want to go on dates. Like it's gender unspecific. So kind of you just go on dates, and that resort, you have to kind of, put lots of, resources into kind of meeting people, which then creates kind of caution, areas of emotions which start feeding back through, and fears and that kind of thing went both through, and it's all kind of the things that relate to. So it's kind of like almost a simulation of a person. It's making a system out of human experience. But it's lighter than that, because it actually wants to tell you a story with this stuff. So actually it's in the same way that like an author kind of systematizes kind of human experience when you tell a story, because you're kind of simulating it, and when you read it, you kind of, it's that kind of thing. It doesn't feel like an engineered human that it's trying to do. It's not trying to kind of sort of create, kind of an engineered version of what it is to be human. But, because in this, the story actually sort of opens up, and you end up realizing that the person, the character that you're playing, is not all you thought they were. They're not just, they're actually from another country, and they're spying on people here, which then you're suddenly realizing there's the flavor text moments where you sort of slowly piece together what's happening. And like by the end of it, you're managing this enormous system. You're trying to keep your, enough money to keep paying your rent, because as soon as you can't pay your rent, that's fucking sort of piling loads of negative stuff back. You're trying to sustain your relationship. You're trying to afford a ring to get married, and you're also spying on somebody that's close to you, and that is leading on to other things, and kind of like sort of a lot of things you're trying to do, you run out of time on. There are two other stories which I haven't played yet. One of which is about a painter, someone who's trying to make art, and in this one, the emotions are much more important, where you kind of use emotional kind of responses to things in order to generate inspiration and things. And there's one where you enter a relationship with an AI, and apparently there's two sides. I'm not really sure how it works, that one, but it plays around with this formula. It's really odd and interesting, and I've never really played a story game, a narrative-based game like it. So it's almost like there's tower defense elements to it, which is apparently where the concept started. You can see kind of a lot of concepts in the game came from sort of lots of disparate genres, and sometimes they struggle. So there's a few of the metaphors in the game are a bit odd when you invest resources into, like a sort of an endeavor to go for a date. It talks about establishing a train, which is gathering these different points of resources coming from all of these different hexes, buildings across the thing. But like, I don't really associate trains with the human psyche so much. But it's weird and flawed and very individual and super interesting. And also the other thing I was going to mention is so the guy who made it, Nikhil, lives in Bangalore, and there are aspects of the first story that like are definitely not a pure Western experience. So this person just comes to this country and becomes a cab driver, for instance, which I think like isn't a common thing for a young person to do, who, sort of, come to a country. So there's sort of like little flashes of kind of cultural specificity to it, which are really interesting too. So Yeah, I recommend it. I'm not quite sure how much it costs, but and it really will put you off if you ever see it.
Yeah.
And it also won't make any sense if you see it. But you kind of, it's one of those games where you start to play it and you follow the tutorial and you think, I have no idea how this works. And then it's suddenly ping, and it's good.
From you talking about it, it sounds like one of those really intricate board games that I used to play, like Power Grid or so. Not Power Grid is actually not that intricate, but it's like, you know, lots of different interacting systems that simulate a thing, kind of, but like, yeah, and you get to grips with it only sort of after a few turns, and then you see what it's trying to do, but every photo won't take any of that and translate it to anything. It will still just look like stuff that you've plonked down, and like abstract bits, you know, counters and things like that. Like, and you're like, yeah, but this is my whole empire. And you're like, well.
Well, it's like, you know, how that thing, you're playing SimCity and your city is kind of like, because you've been playing it sort of really intensively for a few hours and you know where everything in the city is. And then maybe you go on holiday, or maybe you just don't pick it up for a year or something, and you go back to that save game and what is going on? Where is everything and what? So I think, yeah. And there's a bit of Galcon to it as well, because you're kind of dealing with sort of flowing stuff from here, that part of the sort of space to another bit of the space. And
how does it give you bits of flavor text that give you the context?
When you can click on any of the hexes, buildings fundamentally, and it'll tell you kind of what kind of led to that building appearing. Or so there's the spy one, you know, you click on it and there's little flavor text, which is kind of broad enough. I sort of say sort of like, you know, she's just a teacher, you know, I can't remember the exact wording. It was like, she's just a teacher, isn't she? Or is there something more to her? You know, and then later on, like, there's a development in the story which kind of continues that. But again, you're still playing, fundamentally what you're playing is a game where of concentration, where you're trying to build on like what become very complex kind of in building projects, while also making sure these sort of negative emotions don't. So you're kind of keeping, oh shit, I've got too many things going on and now I can't feed enough stuff into my defenses, which are my art making. I'm not, which is fundamentally like in your life, you're not doing enough art because you are too constant, you're concentrating too much on your work, or you weren't working enough because you were doing something else in your life, and your kind of own player kind of concentration and attention span is kind of, you know, is the problem. It sort of quite naturally scales like that.
How reactive is it? Like, if you mess up, does the story actually change, or is it more that there's fail states?
That's it's a good question. No, because there are some story critical bits where you only have one. There's a time limit on it, and you only have one go at doing it. With the date, you could do it multiple times, and I found that I didn't have time the first few times because I'd built things too far away from each other. So I was just watching the resources kind of crossing the whole space, going to, you know, one side and then going back to the other. And the timer can't tick down before, you know, so you have to be quite careful with placement. And the time limits haven't been too stringent. But then if a negative emotion goes through, you might well mess up, because now suddenly a load of resources aren't being generated by emotional centers that, you know, that got shut down by you feel overwrought by whatever trauma you've experienced.
Interesting.
The other game it reminded me of was people talking about Disco Elysium.
Yeah,
I was thinking about that.
Yeah, like different traits, or like, but it seems to play in a very different way with that idea of you being composed of these different elements rather than being a monolith, I guess.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, that's really. I hadn't thought about that, and that's actually true. Yeah, like and it's interesting that people are finding, like, so interesting. We've been talking about Bioshock, which is held up as this sort of, you know, exemplar for sort of video game storytelling and what games could do. And all it really did was make a comment about what games are.
Yeah.
And then today, quietly, games are actually being able to kind of use systems to do quite subtle things that board games have been doing, since forever. But finally, sort of games have managed to find sort of like real-time kind of ways of expressing it.
I love that. It's like you're talking about this really subtle experience, and I was essentially playing "Stop Hitting Yourself" the game.
Well, it's like, I mean, it's sort of like Bioshock's about, that sort of Bioshock thing was about like how much agency you're actually giving up when you play a game, even though you feel like you've got all the agency in the world, right? And it's because players get very sensitive about giving up agency rather than something that, as soon as you're asked to do it in a game, except in the right context, like, it has to be contextualized very carefully.
Yeah.
The illusion that I'm in control has to be maintained very carefully, and there's a million different philosophies when it comes to that. Like, the sort of Naughty Dog philosophy of, it will feel so good to be on the deterministic path that you will convince yourself that you are choosing the particular way in which Nathan Drake falls down this hill or whatever, right? But I quite like that a lot of the core assumption to a lot of those experiences, including Bioshock, was that you, the player, are kind of like one singular entity, right? And the thing that seems to link this game to Disco Elysium, to Fallen London, and a bunch of games that have entertained some of the same ideas, to Tides of Numenera, which very much entertains the same idea, is that it's more interesting to think of the player character as a lot of different people, all with different needs. And you, the player, only control some of them, some of the time, and the rest of them can kind of show up to bully you, which is exactly what happens in Disco Elysium. Yeah. Really spectacularly. So, yeah.
Yeah, and like it's sort of, they're all making comments on, even within yourself, you're not all that in control.
No, and you're also not all that singular.
Yeah.
Which is maybe the most important thing.
Yeah.
Like, you're always playing co-op with your need to go for a wee.
Yeah. Oh, and the kind of like the story, like, this is a really scripted game, but when you fail in general, it's because you messed up, like you were trying to do too much. And didn't take your time. So yeah, the quiet sleep. Don't know why it's called that.
Maybe that'll be your revelation at the end of the third story.
So we just took a completely seamless break, and during that completely seamless break, we discovered what it was Pip was listening to. Well, Ryan Gosling? Andrew Ryan Gosling was beaten to death with a golf club.
It was My Life Would Suck Without You by Kelly Clarkson.
It's just so poignant.
Just too perfect.
Exactly what Ken intended.
Kenneth.
What was the frequency?
94.3.
0451. That is such a fucking nested nerd apocalypse of a joke.
Yeah. The Deus Ex via REM
exactly.
and Bioshock. Good work,
so
everybody.
Thief has 451. 0451. It's in, it's one of the codes for the warehouses in about the 6th level.
102.8 was my home, town. I think it was Invicta FM.
And welcome back to another episode of Numbers We've Loved.
0898 50 50 50.
Yeah.
We should do some questions, because that is what we do at this point in the podcast. I'm stalling because while setting up this and doing things, I lost the questions. They were on my phone, and now they're back. Thanks for helping through that, everybody.
Happy
Moral
to.
He just sort of smiled at me while I floundered for my phone.
You seem to have it under control.
I thought we were just chatting.
There's been microphones here the entire time, Pip.
No, I mean, but I wasn't aware that anything untoward was happening. While Alex smiled encouragingly across the table.
That's right, Chris, you're doing really well. That's what I was doing. That was the help I was doing with the smile.
Quite supportive to everyone else.
Yeah. I rely heavily on Alex.
You bring it upon yourself, Pip.
This is most upsetting. I'm only here because you emotionally blackmailed me into being on the podcast.
Let's not do this here, not in front of the kids. Come on. Our first question, which is not really a question, it's just a fun story, comes from an angry barnacle who writes, so this is not really a question, instead a very amusing anecdote follows. Listening to the old podcast again, he's referring to the old PC Gamer podcast, and I made it to the questions in episode 28. Minutes earlier, I'd been wondering when the first appearance of Tom Senior would occur. Then a question from a certain Thomas Senior gets read out on Twitter.
Different person entirely.
As it was in those days, mid-2009. This is followed by a question from one Phil Savage. As if it wasn't enough to sign things to come, the conversation is about the forthcoming hats in Team Fortress 2. Ross Atherton proclaims that instead of the football helmet the Heavy was set to receive, he should get a fez, as everyone looks good in a fez. As it would be, the Heavy would eventually get his fez. So would the next Doctor, and a game named after the hat would make shockwaves in the indie scene. This 2 to 3 minute period of one podcast episode was extremely prophetic, and I would venture to say altered the course of this reality's timeline. That's from An Angry Barnacle.
I can tell you also that right at this very moment, what we are recording it in right now,
Yeah.
Ross
Right
Atherton
now in 1986. Ross Atherton.
is in Bath right now.
Good
Because
God.
he lives in northern France.
He does. He works for Blizzard.
Blizzard. But he's in Bath right now.
Incredible.
Yeah.
You know, I've never met Ross.
Have you not? Did you meet Ross?
Never in a professional context. I went to before the Weekender, there was a PC Gamer show that was done once and never again. And, I went along to that and, met Ross briefly there. But no, never actually worked alongside him.
That's your PC Gamer origin story, isn't it, Tom?
Pretty much, yeah. I mean, actually, like Ross published, a kind of, used to have like reader pages where you'd submit like a reader review and it would get published, and I got like a piece about Empire published there. And I was like, yeah, it's the best thing ever. And then kept on submitting. And that's how eventually I got to work for PC Gamer.
So that question from Thomas Senior was not you.
However, that was an imposter. No, that was me.
That was you?
Yeah.
Do you remember what the question was?
I don't remember it, but I do. I would submit questions to the old PC Gamer podcast, which I enjoyed a lot. I never thought I'd get to be on it.
Let alone succeed it, and then destroy it.
Consume it and move on.
I really like the idea that you just started writing reader reviews, and then at some point they were just like, "Is he staff?"
He just moved in.
That's what you got to do.
There was a certain
very
period.
stealthy.
There's a certain period of time where if you simply refuse to leave the office,
You just get hired eventually.
that's how I got in. Didn't leave, and then I did leave, and now I'm here at home. Our next question.
I was wondering whether I needed to step in there. Because he's been moaning about us not stepping in.
Thanks for stepping in. Our next
He
question.
loves it. He loves moaning about us not stepping in. It's his bread and butter.
I wish you'd stop being stepping in.
Do you want us to help?
No.
Right, there you go.
Next question comes from a Discord regular whose name I can't pronounce. Velake. It's one of those, or it's neither of those. Who writes, "Oh, thanks.
This is good radio.
Hi, Quetzalcoatl and Tizcatlipoc." Oh, for why do you do this to me? What is the silliest thing you've ever done in a game? And while doing it, did you have a moment of realization and go, "What am I doing?" Thanks for reading, everybody. And that's from Who Knows.
I'm just going to say that my moments of realization happen on this podcast, and that nothing that I do feels like it's stupid right up until it's being observed. It's a kind of quantum thing, I think. And then, you know, the way that I play Dishonored, for example, I thought was completely normal right up until Chris is sat on the sofa next to me, absolutely corpsing because he can't understand, you know, why I'm now, I don't know, stuck in a toaster or whatever it was.
Why are all these corpses being collected in the dentist's office?
No, but there was that thing where I tried to use my power in a completely sensible way, like to get through a door, but I accidentally misjudged it and wanged myself right through like a paper window or something. I can't remember.
Oh, that was very funny.
And then like ended up in the bathroom with someone who wanted to kill me, and then just ended up like doing circles around this apartment while I tried to remember what button I needed to press. And you couldn't breathe because you were laughing so hard. And to me, I'm just like, but that's just how we play video games.
Like,
Right, what's going on in your save?
You're playing it
What's
properly, because
happening?
I would have done the awful. I just have save scummed, and I must admit, sort of playing Thief, I am save scumming, and I really should be just letting moments like that happen.
Pile up.
lately I've been, the answer for me is always going to be a Dota thing, but like lately I've been playing Dota again with a friend, Ben, who's a bit earlier on his Dota journey than I am.
And kind of way of putting it.
Well, no, it's like everyone's a different. It's like when you're talking about a game that takes.
He's a Dota idiot.
He's like only 1,000 hours in. So
this young Padawan.
Yeah. So there's like,
to learn.
But it's nice because it means I get to experience some things through his eyes, but also it is also starkly exposed what a fucking weirdo I am. So like, I get quite loud when I play certain games, and I'm not necessarily like a loud. I think those who know me would say that I'm not necessarily like an extremely loud person in other interactions. Probably talk too much, but not like a kind of screaming, shouting, whooping sort of person. And yet, in the video game Dota 2, I found myself playing our lunchtime game the other day, and I just started whooping, "Save the egg! Save the egg! Ah!" really loudly. And then that saving the egg indeed actually turned that team fight and ultimately put us on a course to win the game. It was a correct strategic call. But afterwards, I just had this moment of realization, which is like, I was just screaming, "Save the egg," at a fellow man in his 30s and media professional. But he did save the egg, and I'll be grateful for him for that for at least a week.
I played all of Ico, the PS2 game, classic, not knowing that you could pull the ethereal girl, Yorda, out of the holes the nasty dark creatures pull her into. I didn't know you could, I never thought, even though your single interaction with her is to be able to hold her hand and pull her places, it never occurred to me to try to pull her out of the holes.
She's dead now.
So I would play each encounter, and every time there are any creatures, I would start this just sort of attempts to beat them without them going near her. And the game was incredibly hard as a result. I finished it. And then soon afterwards, I realised that there was this whole thing of pulling her out that I realised I could have gotten away with it. Oh my God. Wow. I was not proud. It's not like it wasn't the sort of video game feat that I could be proud of. I couldn't have made a video and people would have thought, "Oh, what a pro player."
Imagine if you pitched the article of like why Ico is the dark soul.
Yeah.
And all of the comments are just,
more like dark holes. What's her name again?
Yorda.
They needed a clearer animation to express that you could do that. A hole tell Yorda, if you will.
No.
Denied. My ridiculous moment involves a peripheral. Oh, come on. Let's not all be children because of time travel.
I'm giving myself a frontal lobe headache. Rocking backwards too quickly.
Come on. It was a racing wheel and some pedals. And
a racy wheel.
It was motorized if you plugged it into the mains. And which meant that it rumbled and offered
in the lap.
Did
you hold it in your lap or
no? So
on a table.
I had my
Did you rest it on the table?
It was nailed.
Did it throb upon your lap?
It was clamped to my old student kind of desk.
Your old student,
and this desk was like a rattly IKEA.
I'll take your older student.
Oh.
It was a rattly old MDF desk made of the dream of what a desk might be one day. So you can't be on it. It had like it would rumble like fuck every time you went into the gravel in the game or just turned too hard, and it was trying to resist you like turning as though to like try and realistically simulate what happens with wheels. I don't know anything about it. I don't know what
happens with wheels.
Anything about
this
cars.
running theme.
I didn't know that if you turn a wheel in a car, the wheel fights you and vibrates and tries to get off your desk. Like, is that what driving is like? That's what I thought. So I was there, and it was the loudest thing ever. Because it was like, it almost fucked up my desk completely, because it was just rattling endlessly every time I was trying to drive. And I had some moment realisation, it was like, Tom, you can't drive. You literally have no, like, basis of understanding at all for what you're trying to do. Like, I had no idea how to be good at it, and also you're ruining your shit by trying to make this thing work. And so I put it in a box and never ever used it again. It's like a wasted purchase and a ridiculous moment in my life. Which I've shared with everyone on a podcast. It's good, isn't it?
That's the miracle of this format. We received a lovely email from Stephen about how much he appreciates the podcast. He also had a question, which we'll get to in a second. And I realized, and part of his email, which was sent a few days before we had to skip a week for crazy kind of personal schedule, various reasons, he said how much he appreciates it managing to do it every week. So I wanted to apologize for timing that break accidentally so perfectly, but hopefully you've, happy to have, I don't know where I'm going with this. We're back. Sorry is what I was going at with it.
Sorry we're back.
Stephen's question. Sorry we're back. And sorry about this. And Stephen's question is, in goals, fuck. In games.
Goals.
Wow. What's
Welcome
this podcast
to
about?
the football. Creighton football.
No one would believe this based on my sporting knowledge. But do you know my first word was goal?
Are
Literally.
you regressing? Oh no, you've just been
Been
born.
born. Oh, welcome to the world, Chris.
Goalie Chris.
It's because my granddad used to shout at the TV about football, at the football.
That's excellent.
And I thought that the word goal meant ball. So I used to have a toy ball, and when I wanted it, I would shout goal! Because I thought that my granddad was cheering for the ball that had succeeded in its quest to go into the big net. And therefore you would cheer the ball's name, goal.
That's the cutest thing in the world.
Yeah, my first sentence was goal gone, go get, which is also alliteration. Just saying. Anyway.
No one could see on the podcast how smug you looked
Utterly
at that
proud,
moment.
yeah.
It was just so...
Yeah, anyway, so Stephen writes, not that, but this. In games with goal-oriented unlock systems, such as Into the Breach and some of the older Call of Duty games, do you prefer to focus on efficiency with unlocking new things, or do you find yourself finding that perfect mech squad for you and focusing on just that one? Do you try and make every attachment available for yourself on the off chance that you have a change of heart later with a weapon you hate? When an unlock list is complete, do you have a sudden feeling of fantastic, now I can enjoy the game? And that's from Stephen from Boise, Idaho. Place I've been to exactly once. It's very nice.
That's good.
That's also irrelevant.
Find that it's less about the game per se, but like I know how I tend to play games in general, so I know that there are going to be some parts of a skill tree that I will never use, like, I mean, to take Bioshock as an example, just because I know precisely not much about it, but more than other things that I now can't remember that happened more than a day ago.
Who is Andrew Ryan?
Look, let's not.
He's a political editor for the BBC, I think.
I think you're thinking of Andrew Garfield. Anyway.
He's a cat.
Yeah. Why are we talking about comedic?
I think that, obviously, not obviously, but at points it lets you upgrade weapons, and you get one use of the upgrade station and you pick a thing. And I knew that pistol would be the thing that I was leaning on more, and then sort of after that it would probably be shotgun, and after that machine gun, if you see what I mean. And then from that point onwards it hands me an upgrade station and it's like, do you know what, any of them, because it's not going to make a difference. So I think it's more that I have a few things that I know that I will gravitate towards unless the shooting or the polish just isn't there. And the rest of them will just sort of be a bit of a jumble, or will be, oh, okay, the game is heavily skewed towards this thing, so I will try and specialise in that a bit. Or like, if I'm dying a lot, sure, whack some health in, whatever.
I tend to experiment quite a lot until I find the one thing that just feels great, and then I keep on doing that. So in Assassin's Creed, I'd try all the weapons, but eventually in Assassin's Creed 2 anyway, I'll just throw double-handed sword at people and do that over and over again, and that's how I played that game. And but I do appreciate games like God of War, which isn't a PC game, but I fucking love, for just giving you an axe and putting all the effort into making everything that axe does look and feel awesome. And so you don't really, it sort of takes the choice out of your hands. You get to enjoy just sort of learning how to use this one thing instead of the stress of having to work it out for yourself in a way. Sometimes it's nice just to be given a fun thing and then let you just get on with using it.
I definitely sympathise with the thing Stephen describes as the feeling of, I've got everything, finally the game can begin.
Right.
I think for me that's a sign that like a game's sort of internal sort of sense of priorities has gone out of whack somewhere. Like I quite appreciate, I quite enjoy the feeling of knowing that the right thing to do is simply cobble together a solution that works now and not to worry about unlocks too much. And I struggle to draw attention to exactly, I feel like a big difference maker there is something like any multiplayer game. So it tends to be multiplayer games with unlocks are the ones where you get that feeling of like, oh, now I've got everything. I can start learning the actual game. And that's one of the reasons I dislike leveling systems in multiplayer games so much. There's only a handful of games I can think of that I've actually enjoyed despite them having some kind of unlock tree for gear. Like Titanfall I enjoyed anyway, but like,
It's terrible for Battlefield. It's
terrible for Battlefield.
Games
it's one of the reasons that, and I'm writing about this at the moment, which is why it's on my mind, but it's one of the reasons that I still rate Dota so highly, because it gives you everything from the start, and it's unique in its genre in that regard, and that's like a big deal for me, because that means that I feel like my learning is not going to waste. I feel very like, I'll happily sink thousands of hours into a game if I feel like every hour I'm investing is being invested practicing with the tools that will actually still be useful in a bit. Whereas any particularly competitive multiplayer game that starts you off with starter gear, obviously you're learning some techniques and things, but it doesn't feel like you're kind of getting the whole experience. The thing I would compare it to is like playing competitive board games with just the contents of the core set or something, you know what I mean? Where you find out that, oh, the competitive format has more stuff in it. Like, it's that kind of thing. Single player games, it bothers me less. Like, in fact, often having everything in a single player game is when I stop. Like Battletech, for example, I've gotten to the point with my Battletech campaign. I've finished the main campaign, so I'm perfectly happy to get there. But I'm at the point now where it's like, yeah, I'm very powerful, and I can pick a tough mech fight if I want to have a tough mech fight, but there are no big robo men for me to conquer.
As Alexander the Great would say.
Exactly.
Is that why you think maybe you have been able to do Destiny 2, or to sort of play that and not be sort of annoyed by it? Because I've had the opposite experience. I hated going back down to that,
I quite enjoyed
character.
I quite enjoyed the climb again, and also like, because I went back to Destiny 2 recently for the latest expansion, which you have as well, Tom. Actually,
yeah,
we didn't talk about that, have we?
No,
that
it's the game we instantly forget that we played.
Yeah, we did both instantly forget that we played Warmind. In short version,
it's definitely Destiny always is at its lowest ebb before the big kind of mid-season expansion. The
spring expansion is always the weakest one, but no,
it does kind of for me like ruin a lot of some of the best lore in the game.
That thing,
just like so the campaign bosses you fight are terrible.
We joked, I think it was on the podcast you and I did, Tom, that it's inexplicable to us that it would turn out that the best way to delivering Destiny's lore was actually on the back of out-of-game trading cards in an app. But it's completely true. Like the Warmind, because I think the reason it's ended up as it is those expansions have been farmed out to other developers, that they're not being made by Bungie,
right? Principally,
and that unfortunately seems to show in that. So that's a shame. But yeah, I haven't really minded the climb back with Destiny because I quite enjoyed the thing. And actually, they have made quite a lot of good changes to that game in terms of making those late game gear feel good and getting more stuff feel good. The fact they reworked all the exotics feels real nice.
So I think that model, like, cause Diablo has always felt kind of as you build up that character, like the unlocks for any given class are the same as you go through, but then they're kind of spiced up by the legendaries and whatever you pick up along the way. So like builds kind of morph a little bit and become different as you on different playthroughs, which is nice. But I think, the unlock for me is like the unlock structure is what pulls me through the game, but it's not something I don't want to max out stuff. It's just wish to try something new, build upon what I was doing before, learn another thing, not feeling overwhelmed at any point, which is like the sweet spot, which often games err from, but a little bit, but.
There was an interesting sort of, I don't think it will be entirely relevant maybe, but related. Tom, do you remember a few weeks ago maybe one of the PC Gamer weekly questions was something about what a game's still doing that we wished that they'd stopped doing?
Yeah.
And I think, was it Tim Clark's answer was something like, or it might have been, I can't remember, but it was this idea of asking you to pick classes and specializations and things before you've had a chance to really play the thing.
Yeah.
And that stuck in my mind because it expressed a thing that I think I hadn't realised how annoyed I was or how lost I feel at the beginning of, say, a massive RPG, and what a commitment it feels like to possibly screwing up within the first 5 minutes and not finding out for a long time. And I sort of was thinking it would be quite nice if that form of unlocks, you could either, if you were confident enough in yourself or in that genre or whatever, to say, I definitely want these things from the start. But if you weren't, maybe there would be an option to say, I just want to play for 2 hours. And then you tell me what I've been specialising in, because I don't have the information to make that decision specifically for your game right now. And so I think that would be a nice thing to do, because I think in some ways those unlock trees can commit you to sort of slightly jack of all trades, master of none play styles, because you weren't sure what you were getting into, and you've accidentally put 2 points in something you really don't care for, but you can't rejig it, or it hamstrings you a little.
I really like Diablo 3's way of doing it, which is just to give you, every time you just know every skill that you unlock, and anytime you just drag it into your taskbar and play with it and do whatever you want, and then build whatever you want out of the collection of skills.
The one thing is that you can't, like, save builds. That's the one.
Yeah, that's annoying. That should just be in that game for sure. Yeah. But the way it balances it is that you only have access to a certain number of skills at a time, but you can build that taskbar out of anything. Guild Wars 2 does this really well as well.
That's the game I was going to bring up. It's a good example of this.
Yeah.
Because it feels more like rounding out a collection, but you don't need every part of that collection to be part of.
And you're totally free to just switch stuff in and have fun whenever you like, which is, I think, that feels like good modern design to me. It's not about trees that lock off entire avenues of the game, which sucks.
Our final question of the week comes from TJ, or Travis.
TJ Hooker, if we're talking 1986.
TJ Howes in this case, so also an H, but the different H. And he writes, hello. I've been playing the superb and exhausting Beat Saber. And it brought to mind the following question. When we read this out, we all got very excited about the Slay the Spire type euphemistic potential of the phrase Beat Saber. And it only got more exciting with the following sentence. What is your favourite mechanically irrelevant polishing touch in a game? And why is it melty lightsaber trails left on the environment?
Oh, really?
In the Jedi,
read out everything, did he?
in the Jedi Knight games, those melty lightsaber trails.
God. Like,
Those
imagine
hot,
a
melty
black
trails.
light in the Jedi Academy, just like, oh.
Well, that
It's
is
a lot of adolescent Jedi.
not a Padawans. Padawan.
No.
No.
Your favourite polishing.
It's your favourite polishing touch.
I feel traumatized by that question. That's so... Oh.
Your favourite cheeky little detail. Your favourite...
Oh God, there's menus. It's nice menus when the transition from game to the menu.
You have a whole
There's not
column
even
on
remote.
this, don't you, for OBS?
I think there probably is.
Menus I've loved
Should know
quite a
this,
lot.
really. Yeah.
Exactly.
I can't think of any examples now because they've.
That was such a good start and stop of an idea. We're all very tired. I'm trying to think. I kind of like, I like those moments in game, not design necessarily, but presentation, where someone goes a little bit above and beyond on that final extra detail. Like the melty lightsaber trail, which is a good example of this because it's in that category of like, you don't need to be able to draw on every surface with a lightsaber, but it wouldn't do better if you could.
I remember there's, in Wolfenstein 2, if you look at the, there was sort of like, kind of control consoles, Nazi control consoles, and they're all kind of got lights kind of bleeping around on them. And, you know, Doom time, they would have just been a like, repeating kind of pattern sort of things cycling around. In this one, they've got like those segmented kind of, sort of digital kind of readouts. And the numbers go up. Like someone bothered to actually sort of program these animated kind of consoles. Totally, utterly incidental. And they just go up all the way. I was just watching them for ages thinking, this is the best thing in this game. Because it speaks to a general layer of polish that game has, which is like above and beyond, which is definitely like that studio's forte.
I like be able to see characters' breath in cold weather. That's always a sign that someone's really paying attention to the kind of...
In fact, all the Metal Gear stuff, like, there's a lot of breath in Metal Gear.
Yeah,
and all the Metal Gear stuff.
I know. So, for example, like, so to bring God of War up again, but if you're in a cold place, you can see Kratos, the dragon breath of, normal natural condensation, but you go to a realm where it's just poisonous smoke, and the breath changes to be like as though he's exhaling that smoke from his lungs. So they've changed the colour of that and the animation of it and everything just to reflect where he is, and that's above and beyond.
That's
the best.
Cool. I think for me, an interesting thing that has happened is having gone back quite as far in time as
1986.
Well, as Bioshock, it's interesting some of the things that are missing in that game that I didn't realise I'd grown accustomed to modern games doing. And I think one of the big things is the sheer repetition in that game of particular like musical notes or, barks or, the noises that the machines make, things like that. And how that level of repetition is a lot less now. So, the fact that people invest in slightly more varied dialogue and
circus of value.
Yes, exactly. That was what I was thinking of. But, there are a few others, and there's a particular musical note, and the interestingly, when you've hacked a drone to follow you, it makes the noise pretty much the same sort of mechanical buzz noise as Junkrat's ultimate, like the spin tire thing, does in that. And so I have that sort of inbuilt, like there's a thing, but like I'm gonna blow up basically, but it's my friend, the drone.
Droney.
And the other thing in that game, which Overwatch actually does do spectacularly well, is noise occlusion. And so something that I'm really struggling with in terms of getting my bearings is in Bioshock, the game doesn't differentiate between a character or an NPC that is near you without a wall between you and a character that is near you with a wall between you. And so I often think, there's someone next to me or there's someone behind me or whatever, and they're in a completely different room and they haven't got a sense of where I am. But the game hasn't got an audio cue that will let me know or an effect that it can add in that gives me a sense of they are sort of behind something and I'm protected.
That's surprising. Because I think Thief does do.
That's interesting.
I think it is. You can tell when people aren't in the same room as you, but you can hear them.
But yeah, like, because I'm really struggling with that because it's like everything could be anywhere.
It's
near
right next to you.
Yeah. And so that's a thing. It's more that I'm noticing other games excelling by the absence of things in in Bioshock, and also just sort of, how storytelling has come on, or how level design has come on, or how, you can see that things were influential, and that at the time they would have been probably like really interesting or good, or at least, average, right? They wouldn't have been like bad. And then, or maybe not, I don't know. But, so yeah, it's that thing of getting a bit of not a privilege check, but a kind of, the things that I do now take for granted are levels of polish in context, which is really interesting. I mean, not, funny, but...
We don't promise a laugh a minute. And to be honest, that's the most sober ending to a joke about wanking that we've ever had.
Oh yeah, I really took the fun out of that one.
It's all right. We needed a voice of steady reason.
I mean, I could have tried to make a big daddy thing happen.
I was about to...
God.
I almost said something worse, so that's
With
not...
like the helmets or something?
No. Oh, no.
Is that a thing?
Oh, no.
I don't think it is, no.
I don't think it
I
is.
don't think it is at all.
I'm Randy.
No.
Still not.
No.
What was it that you were...
An ending is what's happening.
And then, yeah.
Was it the lighthouse?
Lighthouse.
There's always a man, and there is always
And he's
a
always
lighthouse.
got his lighthouse.
What are we even talking about?
Literally no idea.
Oh God, I decided to come with the word. I'll tell you after. If you'd like to send us a question for each episode of The Crate and Crowbar, you can do so by emailing questions@crateandcrowbar.com. You can also... Would you kindly... Oh,
Topical.
Oh.
If you would like to relive the experience of
Yellow.
listening to a video game podcast in 2007, why not tweet us on brand new social media
Use
platform.
your N-Gage.
Yeah, indeed. Yeah.
Get hold of us on your BlackBerry.
Yeah.
BBM.
Yeah. Direct Mozilla Firefox to twitter.com. And you...
Netscape.
SMS at...
Look, do you want me to end this podcast or what?
I just want to relive Netscape.
best animation.
Look, if you can remember Netscape, you weren't really there.
But where? Wasn't I somewhere I can remember?
What?
What?
We're on Twitter. It's a Crate and Crowbar, obviously. If you'd like...
Crate and Crowbar, many places. There we go.
Yes,
Social
indeed.
shout-outs done.
Patreon, as ever, thank you for enabling this. If you choose to do so via Patreon, if you'd like to find out more about doing that, or indeed cancel.
You can't get a refund, though.
You can do that at patreon.com/Crate and Crowbar. Your support is very much appreciated. If you'd like to find our YouTube versions of our podcasts and other videos, including Bloodborne, which will be coming back. Sorry.
It's going to happen.
You can find that at youtube.com/Crate and Crowbar. What am I missing? I don't think I am missing
Send us
anything.
questions?
I've already done that. Yeah, if you'd like to follow us individually, I don't exist, but Pip can be found.
I'm on Instagram at Philippa War, which is PHILIPPAWARR. I'm not on Twitter at the moment, really. I'm not paying
neither am I, really.
attention.
I'm Semi on... We did it. We did it. ROTATIONAL. That's rotational on
That's
the Twitter.
called windmilling, Alex.
Tom.
I'm at PCG Ludo, and that's Ellie.
Are you semi on it or fully?
I'm fully on it, Alex.
I'm sorry. It's only been like a 2-hour podcast.
Has it?
Yeah, it feels a lot longer.
Packed a lot in.
Yeah.
There's been, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, well,
Right.
bye. Thanks for listening, everybody.